Hello everyone, and welcome to Collection Reflection. Today, we're going to do something a little different than normal. We're going to look at the entire Wave 4 from Dragon Ball Evolve. I'm not used to reviewing so many figures at once, but I'm going to give it my best shot, and I'd really like to hear your feedback on how it goes. So without further ado, let's start reflecting on these figures. Let's start off by taking a look at the packaging. You can see there the incredible artwork that's on each one of these. And the back of each box is character specific. So you're going to see the character that you're buying front and center, with the rest posed in the background. But you can see each character is posed the exact same on all of the packaging. I wish they would have been able to use that space to describe the character or maybe the show a little bit, but instead it just looks like some legal nonsense that they have to put on the box. I picked up all three of these figures at my local Target for only $10 each. Now that we got the boxes out of the way, we can take a look at each figure, starting with, in my opinion, the worst of the three. And that's going to be Lord Beerus himself. Originally, I was most excited to get my hands on Lord Beerus because I don't own any other version of him from any other toy line. So when I saw that they were going to be releasing him at such an affordable price, I knew I had to pick him up. And when I got him in hand, I was still pleasantly surprised until I started trying to pose him around. That's when I started to notice some of the flaws. For starters, he's got a bit of missing paint here on his arm, where it should be gold, as well as on the back of his Destroyer's sash, I guess you could call it. He's missing some of those blue lines, but honestly that's not that big of a deal to me. I do want to highlight how well they did on his face. The sculpt is a little soft, but when you get it in just the right light, it looks really well done, and the eyes have no imperfections in them. I also like that they were able to paint his little gold earring up there. Unfortunately, if you take a closer look, you can see that everything is printed a little too far to the left. So when you're in the store, make sure you look for that. Here we can take a look at his lower sash, which seems to be painted a little bit better than his collar. I appreciate the texturing in the pants, and then down here you can see his little boots. I do appreciate the position that they picked his tail to be in, because it allows for a nice neutral position, but it also looks like he might be able to use it in a fight. Let's talk about his articulation. He's going to have a ball joint in the neck, so he's going to be able to rotate just a little bit, as well as swivel around 360. It's not really going to give you much back or down. His arms can go out to the side, no problem. Unfortunately, he is missing bicep swivel, and I would say that's because his arms are so much thinner than any of the other Dragon Ball Evolve figures that they probably didn't think they could include one safely. And you can still rotate at the shoulder as if he had a bicep swivel. The other figures also have somewhat of a butterfly joint, and I guess you could call this a butterfly joint, but it's mostly just a wobbly shoulder. He's got a 90-degree single-jointed elbow, and a swivel and hinge for the wrists. And all the characters are going to have the high-five hinge. His torso and diaphragm might be the most annoying part about this figure. If you apply any force at all, at least on my copy, it's going to pop right off. And that's because of that joint right there. I believe it's called a barbell or a dumbbell joint. I could be wrong, but basically it's two ball joints connected by a post. If you can see there is almost no distance between both of the ball joints. So you're going to have one ball joint that goes up into his chest, and then the other one that's supposed to connect into his waist. But since these two ball joints are so close together, there's no clearance for him to move when this is attached. But when it's in there, you can get just a little bit of movement without it popping out. He can move back about that far, and forward about that far before it falls off. He does have a 360 waist swivel though. He can do the splits pretty well, and his sash is a flexible enough material that he can kick out to 90 pretty easily, and he can kick back about that far. A single jointed knee that bends about 90. He's going to have a nice swivel and hinge at the ankle. You can also get some pretty decent pivot out of it as well. And his tail is supposed to be on a ball joint, so it can rotate 360, and it can move in and out just a little bit, but it has the same issue as his torso. The ball joint is just so close to the base of the tail that there's almost no clearance for him to be able to move it. Thankfully, it pops on and off pretty easily. Let's take a look at the next figure in the wave, and that's going to be Vegito Blue. What stands out most to me about this figure is his hair. I think they did a great job in capturing the likeness. You can see that his face is a little soft in the sculpt. It's very hard to pick out the details of his mouth or his nose, but his Patara earrings are well painted, and I do appreciate that. I've always really enjoyed Vegito's color scheme and design. You can see all the nice wrinkles and ruffles in his outfit. I think they captured that very well. And he's got the Saiyan boots that are painted this time around, as well as the Saiyan gloves. So Vegito's going to have the same articulation as most of the other Dragon Ball Evolved figures, unlike Lord Beerus. So he's also going to have a ball joint in the head that allows a little bit of rocking back and forth. He can look up about that far and down that far, as well as a full 360. His shoulders can easily go out to 90. The design of his overshirt does cause his arms to go out just a little bit, so he can't go directly up. But when you have his arms as vertical as possible, they're going to be out to the side a little bit. It doesn't really hinder the articulation, because he can go out straight to that degree, but he can't get the full 360. He also has bicep swivel, about 90 degrees in the elbow, as well as the swivel and hinge in the wrist. His diaphragm and torso articulation works much better than Lord Beerus. He's able to go back very far and forward pretty well, as well as a full 360 from the diaphragm and the waist. He can do a nice smooth splits, and that's his maximum forward and back. He's got the thigh swivel, really great single jointed knees. They go past 90. And he's got those same great ankles that Lord Beerus does. That's going to allow you to swivel and go back and forth that far, as well as getting a nice pivot. I was extremely pleased with this Vegito as far as his sculpt, design, and articulation goes. This is one of the best out on the market today. This time around, I saved the best for last, and that's going to be Super Saiyan Goku. Normally, I don't buy figure variants, and I already owned the Super Saiyan Blue Goku from this line, so I didn't really intend on picking up the regular Super Saiyan Goku. That is until I saw how much effort they put into the sculpt and design of this figure. I think they did a great job on his hairstyle as well. And the yellow shines very nicely. It gives it a good golden appearance. I also liked how they picked out his eyes in green, even though his face has a soft sculpt, just like Vegito's. But when you come down to look at the rest of the body, you can see the awesome sculpted detail in his muscles. He looks a lot beefier than the other characters, and even the other versions of Goku, which we'll take a look at in the comparisons. But here you can see that the tattered belt is a separate piece. It's casted in blue, and then I guess they come and paint these parts yellow. And the awesome tattered pants. He is missing his little red stripe there, but honestly, that doesn't bother me too much. I feel like they pulled off this battle damage incredibly well, with all the rips and tears in his clothes. This break in his knee is pretty unsightly though. When I look at this figure, I can't help but remember the first time I saw Goku go Super Saiyan on Namek. Dragon Ball Z was one of the first shows that me and my brother ever watched together, so it's always going to have a special place in my heart, along with the Super Saiyan form itself. So now we're going to go over his articulation, which is going to be very similar to Vegeto's. He's got the same swivel, barely any back, barely any down, not so much rocking. He gets a full 360 out of the shoulder, as well as hitting 90. He's got that bit of a butterfly joint. He's got his bicep swivel, 90-degree elbows, swivel hinge. His diaphragm works much better than the other figures. He can go back and forward, as well as a full 360 on both the waist and diaphragm. He's got a great splits, and there's his max forward and back. Both of his knees can go past 90, but this one's going to be a little unsightly since it's made out of 2 different colored plastics. He's got the hip swivel, and his ankles are going to be a little bit more hindered than the other 2, but he still gets decent range. We've looked at the sculpt and the articulation for all these figures. It's time to show off some comparisons. You can see there, when they're compared to each other, they're all about the same height from the tips of each figure. The Dragon Ball Evolve line is a 5-inch toy line, so let's start off by comparing them to some other characters from the same toy line. We can see how Vegito Blue stands next to Broly, the legendary Super Saiyan, and Gogeta Blue. Broly seems to be taller than both of the fusions, but Gogeta seems to be a hair taller than Vegito. And I actually want to take a closer look at those two. But before I do that, I'm really curious to know, what do you consider to be the most important part of the review? Or what do you consider to be your favorite part of the review? Do you like the sculpt, the accessories, the articulation, the comparisons? Let me know down in the comments below. I want to know, what part of my review should I be spending more time on or giving greater focus to? So I would appreciate if you gave me some advice. Right off the bat, you can see that Gogeta has more of a deeper blue, while Vegito has more of a pale, shinier blue. And I believe that is accurate to the animations in the show. I personally like the color of Gogeta's hair a little bit more, but I've always preferred the design of Vegito's hair. And I think this lighter blue goes with his darker gi a lot better than this blue would. However, both of these figures suffer from the same issue, something I like to call cuello diminuto, which means tiny neck in Spanish. Some people watch anime to learn Japanese, some people watch figure reviews to learn Spanish. Both of these figures seem like their neck is just a little too small for their body, almost like they're shrugging constantly. Gogeta has much more of a cuello diminuto than Vegito. And if you're wondering if they can do a head swap, they can't. And that's because Gogeta's neck peg is much bigger than Vegito's. Here's what Lord Beerus looks like standing next to Vegeta and Trunks. From the tip of Lord Beerus's ears, he's just about as tall as Vegeta, and just a touch taller than Trunks. Here we can see how all the Gokus stack up with each other. I originally thought that this Goku was just going to have this body and a recolor of that head sculpt. But as you can see, it's an entirely new design all the way around. If we take a closer look at both of their head sculpts, it might just be a trick of the eye, since this is a lighter color than this, but I feel like this hair looks fluffier, while this one looks sharper and more defined. But I believe it's the same exact head sculpt, which why wouldn't it be if it's the same exact character? And again, as far as the body type goes, I think the Super Saiyan version is a little bit bigger and buffer than the Ultra Instinct version. I know in Dragon Ball Z, the animation had a lot of the characters looking a lot stronger, whereas in Super, everyone looked much leaner. But now we can even compare the design in their gi. I believe the boots are most likely a reuse, but the legs are obviously different. And Ultra Instinct Goku has a much more orange gi, while Super Saiyan is yellow, which makes it look like he's actually enveloped in his aura. And if you're wondering what these Gokus would look like with their heads swapped, you're gonna have to wait till the end of the video. But spoiler alert, they don't swap well. Moving on to some other toy lines, we can see a Dragon Stars and an SH Figuarts version of Goku Black in his Super Saiyan Rose form. Now we can take a look at a couple more Dragon Stars, a Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and a Final Form Cooler. I actually think these two scale pretty well together. Cooler might be a little bit bigger than he needs to be though. Comparing him to another 5-inch toy line, we have Itachi Uchiha and Casey Jones from BST AXN. Looking at a couple of 6-inch toy lines, we have a Marvel Legends Spider-Man and a G.I. Joe classified Spirit Iron Knife. Moving on to some shorter toy lines, from DC Spin Master, a 4-inch line, we have Superman and Batman. They both come up to about the shoulders of Goku. Lord Beerus towers over members from the Final Faction toy line. On the left we have Riptide, and on the right we have a Karn drone. Finally, let's compare him to the Orange Menace himself, Pumpkin Rapper's big head.
Luck has run out.
I think Dragon Ball Evolve is one of the best toy lines that are currently out there today. For $10, you get a completely articulated action figure that has a great sculpt, great design, really nice paint. They don't come with any accessories, but they don't really need any. Besides my complaints with Lord Beerus and his torso articulation, which is a problem with most of the Dragon Ball Evolve figures, a lot of their torsos are either very loose or oversized, and they just get in the way. So I think they could switch from the double ball joint that they have in the torso to either just a single one, or stop trying to give them diaphragm articulation and put that money towards something else, like finishing off all the missing paint apps that they have, or possibly giving them interchangeable hands. But my biggest complaint with all of these figures is the lack of interchangeability. Let's take Goku as an example. They've released 4 or 5 different Goku action figures already. All of the ones I own are not able to interchange their heads. All 3 versions of Goku have different bodies and different heads. I don't understand why they can't just make all the heads interchangeable. So you could have a Super Saiyan Blue on this body or an Ultra Instinct on this body. And I know the obvious answer is they could make a lot more money selling this exact same figure with a different head sculpt next time. The only problem with that is they release 3 figures every 6 months to a year. They're not going to be able to complete this entire line with all the different versions of all the different characters. I don't know how long the Dragon Ball Evolve line is going to be around for, but I doubt that they're going to have enough time to give us every version of every character in all of their forms. So it would be a much simpler idea if they made all the neck joints the same size. So you could even swap Goku's head onto Vegeta's body and give any character you want the Saiyan armor. So instead of trying to accomplish that and trying to be greedy, I wish that they made all the heads and all the hands interchangeable. That way you still have to buy each figure, but you can at least have a Super Saiyan Goku on this body type. If they were able to accomplish this, or at the very least throw in a separate head sculpt for the same figure. So you could get a Super Saiyan Blue and a Super Saiyan in the same package. I think they could increase the price by $5 and I'd still buy this. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below if you think that's a good idea, or if you'd be willing to pay an extra $5 if they included those extra head sculpts. I really want to thank all of you for watching, especially those of you who have come back multiple times and continue to support my channel. It genuinely means a lot to me. I hope you all have a chance to go out and have a nice chuckle today, and try to be kind to somebody. You could change their life. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.
Cuello de minuto.